Hey y'all, it's the first Monday in May and I thought it would be fun to share a little video of what I do at the beginning of the month. And there's like a goal setting component, there's an intention setting component, and also a financial component. And so what's interesting is that this process has evolved over time, and it's also taken me some time to get to a place where I do sit down and allow myself space to tap in and tune in and make bigger picture goals. For a lot of time in my business, what I would do when I first was starting with my business, I would set goals at the beginning of the year, usually the beginning of the calendar year, pages and pages of goals. And sometimes they'd come true and sometimes they wouldn't come true. Oftentimes, I didn't really have a process for checking back in on a regular basis. And so that's something that I do now, and I'm just going to share my process with you all. And I think so that was one, it was like my approach was like set the goals once a year and like make them happen. And oftentimes like situations, maybe you set goals and then new information or a new circumstance comes up in your life and those goals are no longer relevant. So that's why I like this process of checking in, because it allows for flexibility. The other like more logistical component of this was, I think, early on in my business, I packed my and not even just early on, like up until 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, I just packed my schedule super full. So there wasn't, and I didn't appreciate the value of like this sort of time, the time for visioning, the time for integrating, the time even, and this is something I talked about with the Your Stellar Center ladies on our last intuitive business call, I think, was that productivity isn't just what and actually this has been coming up in a lot of sessions recently, so I'll recap. Productivity isn't just the action items. And and also it's fine to not be productive sometimes, but there's a lot of work that gets done in the free time, in the free space. And I'm really acknowledging that now as my business has shifted and grown and requires me to be on my computer doing less, is that there's power in this time, in the time that I spend out in nature, being with my thoughts, in the time that I spend on my yoga mat or doing a workout. Like I had some really interesting insights already. We're on day 1 of Embodied Intuition, which if you want to sign up, you can still sign up and join us. But before the practice today and during the practice, I had some really cool insights and downloads. So anyways, going back to monthly process, there's 2 tools that I utilize in my goal setting, planning, intention setting. One, Magic of I journal, notebook, journal, planner, that's what it's called, which is the planner version, not just, I use their notebooks too, but the planner has like each week, and then there's also space at the beginning of the month, and this is funny because I didn't do this for April, and that's telling me a lot looking back. There's a space for your intentions and then like weekly goals and action steps. And I didn't really do this for April, which is telling me a lot because I felt like there's some weird energy in April. Like I didn't feel like I made as much progress on things. And I realized that's because I didn't set an intention and I didn't give myself action items to check in on. So here's May. Oops. All sorts of things falling out of my notebook here. I did a year ahead tarot spread back in January. And so something that I incorporate into my monthly reflection is I'll go back and look at what those cards were and I pulled one card for each month for my business and one card for personal. And so I'll put those in here and just like write out, like I'll reflect on the meanings of the cards and write them in here. Intentions, like I said, I didn't do that for April, but I'm going to do it for May. And instead of, and this is why I actually like this breakdown of action steps and intentions, is intention is like how you want to feel, what you want, like what is the big picture shift or focus that you want to happen during the month. And then you can break it down into the actual action steps. So I'm going to do that today. Intentions, and then break down the different goals. And normally what I put in here, because I post like at least one class every week, sometimes if I'm launching something, it will require several weeks of planning. And so I'll put those like big picture items in this, break it down, less than like specific action steps. That's something I do Monday of every week, which maybe I'll talk about here too. And yeah, so that's that. And while I'm doing that, so I pull in like the cards that I pulled for the month for the tarot, reflect on those meanings. And then the other thing that I do is I look at the astrology for the month ahead. And this is newer. I used to just do this, like listen to a podcast on a weekly basis, which I still do. But I took a course earlier this year about the astrology for the year ahead. And so I have all these notes in my planner. And the course is from the astrologer Virginia Rosenberg. I really love her work. This is a separate calendar that came with the course and just has major transit dates and some general like themes. So I'll look at the astrology, and I'm not like, I've said this before, but I'm not like, okay, Mercury is going into Gemini on this day, so this is what I'm going to do. But when I'm planning things, or when I'm planning, like, for example, a launch or a program or a retreat or a personal thing, I'll reference the astrology, and then above all, like reference my own intuition to where I want that to show up, where I want that to go. So that's that. Anything else there? I think that's it. And the nice thing about having like these goals in the planner is I do use this planner. I use a Google Calendar for like appointments and stuff, but then every week I'll go in and I'll write my main appointments in the calendar so that I have like a physical version. The other thing that I do, and I'm not going to go into detail on this here, but the other thing that I do at the beginning of the month is do my financial review. We went through this in detail in the Stellar Mastermind last month. And I am going to be opening up the Stellar Mastermind probably this month for independent study. And so if you're interested in more of this like intuitive business conversation, definitely get on the wait list for that program. I'm really excited to dive into that content again. But anyways, the first Monday or Tuesday, usually it's the first Tuesday of the month. I have a recurring appointment on my calendar, so I don't forget to do it. But the first Tuesday of the month, I do a financial check-in where I review my income and expenses from the last month and kind of look at the month ahead for, what's coming in. Are there any goals I want to set? Honestly, don't really set financial goals, which maybe is something that I need to work on and add in this year, probably. I guess I kind of do, but it's not like so strict. I more just look at my income to make sure payments are all processing. Are there any leaks in the like system? Is there anything, any areas that can be improved? And then I do review my expenses in detail, making sure that I have my business expenses documented and that my expenses, I'm spending that money with joy, that I'm spending the money with, that it makes me feel good to spend that money. And every month there's something I find that I'm like, this isn't bringing me joy, or this doesn't feel really great to be spending this. And so that's an area where I can go in and say, okay, what needs to shift here? Is this a program that I unsubscribe from? Is this, do I need to do some work around like this money transaction? Is there a money block there? So that's what I do there. Curious if there's anything else. No, I think that's it. But if you're interested, so a few things. One, if you're interested in more of the intuitive business conversation, these sort of things are what I teach a lot about in the Stellar Mastermind. So put yourself on the wait list for that program. Again, it's going to be independent study, and there's going to be a one-on-one component still. So that will be a really fun way to move through this material of intuitive business at your own pace and apply it to your own work. And then if you're interested in a different way, I didn't really speak to like how I set goals or how I connect with I talked about how I connect to them. But if you're interested in that conversation, then I highly recommend the Remembering the Future workshop, which is available on Teachable a la carte. It's included in your Stellar Center. And even if you're not in a place of like, oftentimes we get these periods of the year, whether it's the beginning of the year, the beginning of the astrological year, I always feel like in the fall, there's like a new year energy. Even if you're not in a place where you're like, okay, new goals, the information that I share in the Remembering the Future workshop is more subtle and nuanced, and it can be applied to at any moment of your life in any time. It doesn't have to be if you're like ready to sit down. Yes, it's applicable if that's the case, but I teach about law of attraction and past lives and how you can set goals from a more intuitive and more you-based place versus like, this needs to be my outcome for this month. This needs to be my numbers for this month. This is the thing I need to check off the to-do list. So Remembering the Future is that workshop title. It's on Teachable, so it's available for purchase a la carte and also included in your Stellar Center. And I think I also included in the Mastermind. I'll put those links below. I hope that this was helpful. If it was, leave a comment, let me know your questions, and now I need to actually go do this. All right, folks, see you soon.